conference call with the Southern California Schools Risk Management, JPA, which most of our districts are a member of. What the issue we discussed was whether or not there was an option for the SELPAs to join the JPA for protection under general liability claims, civil claims. The JPA clarified that the individual employees of the SELPA are covered for any claims. However, the SELPA as an entity, they see separate than the AU. And so they did say that it would be possible for us to join them. However, we would have to join as a separate entity. And so basically, the three SELPAs agreed to just bring this forward to our governance groups for some discussion. In the last year, at least 2 of the SELPAs have had general liability claims filed against the SELPA. And so I know at least in our case, we just paid, there were 2 other entities named, and so we just paid 1/3 of the cost of attorney fees and worked with had the JPA represent us. I know that when you're discussing this in PAC and FAC, they did recognize the litigious nature of our society at this time and felt that perhaps it would be good to consider. We could have the JPA come forward and do a presentation because at this point they have not identified what the cost would be or anything.
So this is the property liability JPA.
Right.
And so the SELPA as a group would join the JPA, is that the idea?
Yes.
So would you like a presentation on that about how it works and costs associated with that?
I would be very much in favor of that. And I would just suggest that in future agenda items, we don't refer to it as the JPA, because joint powers authorities are just kind of generic. They could be anybody. I would suggest referring to it specifically as Southern California Schools Risk Management Associates.
Go ahead and do that.
On the superintendent council meeting schedule, we have been for years asking for it to be at a more reasonable time, a later time, like board of trustee meetings are, late in the evening. So again, I'm requesting that these meetings be changed to at least 5 or 6 p.m. And not only that the public is made aware of these meetings. The last meeting that we had, that I was here and all of you guys were here, the next superintendent meeting was going to be in February. January was never mentioned, okay? I find out the day before the January 9th meeting that there's a meeting. But mind you, I have a letter to Dr. Thomas specifying that I want to know any time that there are meetings regarding SELPA and regarding the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. And mind you, I got no agenda, I got nothing. So I couldn't attend. And everything that was on that agenda is stuff that I have addressed. So I didn't get a voice once again as a parent, as an advocate, or as a board of trustees. Okay? So I'm very upset over that. And I'm very upset that you guys never take us seriously as parents about wanting to have the opportunity to participate in these meetings. And I'm asking again that these meetings be in the evening where we can actually go to them. Because we have babysitters then and stuff like that. We have to get our kids ready for school. And the one that was at 8 o'clock on Monday, boy, perfect timing. Right after, a holiday, and then, 8 o'clock when parents can't make it because we got to drop off our kids. So I'm assuming that there wasn't much public comment. Thank you.
I think that was a special meeting to address the bus contract.
And it was supposed to be in February. It's on tape.
Okay,
I'd like to do my comment after the presentation, please.
After the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, we, as part of our proposal in mental health allocation, let's see, we had some discussion at our program and finance. We had a joint meeting to address this. And one of the issues that did not reach agreement was on facility. And they wanted to consider some further thoughts on this, one of being whether or not we would consider leasing a facility from the public, or would it be possible possibly to lease a facility from one of the school districts, because at this point in time many of our districts may have some space available that could address these needs. So I did ask Dave Romo. Dave is one of our clinical counselors. I think you've been here the longest of any of our clinical counselors. When I started, it was Dave Romo and Lisa Banks-Toma. And so I've asked him to join us in this discussion because this is really his field of expertise, and it was the counselors who put together this presentation. And so you see here that, WESELPA has a long history of providing counseling services. Over time, the type of services we have provided have changed. And of course, this year we have the largest change in that we now are responsible for all educationally related mental health services. Dave, you want to?
When it was first set up, WESELPA was actually the first SELPA, and only one of two school districts have had clinical counseling programs, and they've actually started out with one part-time counselor. And it's kind of morphed and expanded to programs that exist today, but it's always been a leader in clinical counseling field as far as school-based and school-focused services.
This one. Okay, when I came first to WESELPA here, and for a long period before that, there were only 2 clinicians. We currently have 14 clinicians in order to address the needs of the referrals that we've received. This year alone, we've hired 6 new counselors. We actually have a total of 5 new counselors, because one of the counselors we hired earlier in this year we were sharing with East Valley SELPA, and she has left to take leadership, because East Valley SELPA will now begin providing their own counseling services. You can see as SELPAs who previously did not offer these services are gearing up to provide, take over these services due to the change in the law. Just briefly, in 2010-11, from July to December, the first half of the year, we had 86 referrals for counseling. This year, during that same time period, we almost doubled. We have 137 referrals, and they continue to come in quite steadily.
We began actually assuming the responsibilities of the AV services last year when DBH did a huge transfer in January. And we were able to absorb the 90-some cases that they had at that point in time. And what we're getting now is the districts are more than happy that WESELPA is providing the counseling services, and we're beginning to see this drastic increase in referrals of students that clearly need this higher level of services.
And so we really want to ask the question, do we want to continue with the same level of counseling services? Currently, for mental health services, we pretty much have 2 options available. We have individual counseling, as it has been provided by the SELPA counselors, or we have placement in a residential treatment center. And I think there probably are some options in between that would better serve our students and being able to keep them in the least restrictive environment and maintain them in their schools, because one of the things we certainly see, and the research bears this out, that if students go to a residential treatment center, the chances of reunification with their family and the success of that is actually very limited. The strengths we see in our WESELPA counseling services currently are the family involvement. Unlike DBH, the WESELPA has been able to offer family therapy. Also, we have very strong school collaboration because our services are provided at the school site, so the counselors are seen on a regular basis by the staff who are working with these students. Also, if we look at our services, we have really been able to provide more consistent services because we have the option of going to the school site to see the student. We know they're getting those services. Also, when we had students who were referred to the AV program, typically they got services once to twice a month. These were supposed to be the most severe of students. And instead, our counselors see students 3 to 4 times a month. One of the difficulties we are experiencing right now is that our counselors are housed in 2 portables. We've doubled the staff. They still are in the same 2 portables. In part, well, really basically due to my decision, because we were considering whether or not a counseling center would be appropriate, and so we were reluctant to spend the money to expand into other facilities where we would bear costs for infrastructure for the facility, as well as phone lines and all of that. So at this point, we really are in a position where we have to make some change. Probably the most critical issue I see, and Dave, I'm going to ask you to really talk about this, is that the research shows very strongly, and I think it's part of your ethics and such, that if clinicians practice in isolation, there is a much greater risk of legal and ethical problems. I think we all know, schools are kind of unique in that teachers practice very much in isolation for a majority of the day. But we have the option of principals doing walkthroughs and other people coming in and out of the class. When a clinician's meeting with a client, as their supervisor, I can't sit in on that session. And so just as our community of practices and our professional development meetings are so critical for our teachers to hone their practice and ensure that we're working in the most effective and compliant manner, this is even more so for our clinicians.
From a logistic point of view, the situation we have now is going to have to change, plain and simple. We've made do with what we have for now, understanding the fact that we're in a period of great transition. Tremendous transition, both for us and the districts and at the state level. And so one of the situation we have